going on, everybody? This is JR, and I'm here to speak with you a little bit about the mind control media and the way the media has control over your mind today and has for quite some time. It's not really just the media, though. It's the powers, the elites. They're all involved. So maybe if you sit back and listen, take about 5-10 minutes out of your day. It's going to be a short broadcast, and maybe you'll learn something. So, folks, from the beginning, we've all known this. It doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on, whether you're Republican, Democrat, Independent, Socialist, it doesn't matter. We all want the same result. We're all warring against the powers that be. We always have been. We just want to be able to live free, live our lives the way that we see fit, and not be bothered in the process of doing it. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. That's the principle America was founded on. However, for the last 50, 60, 70 years of our lives, that hasn't happened. And I mean, a lot of us haven't been alive for that long. You know, for the last 50, 60, 70 years, it's been all about controlling what the people want and what the people need using the media. And we're not just talking about your news programs, your news outlets. We're talking about commercials. We're talking about advertising. We're talking about, even on the radio, we're talking about flicker rates. Everything you've already known and everything you've seen in movies that they make fun of, which is why we use the picture of Edward Nygma from Batman Forever with the box on his head, because that's what each and every one of us is suffering from today. We have the box on our head. You know, music, everything. It's all geared towards forcing a narrative, and they don't want you to know that they're doing it. So that being said, how do they do this? Well, it's quite a simple plan. It's just pushing the same exact false goods and putting them in front of you in many different ways. So, for example, you might hear, what was the big thing a couple years ago? Oh, bling bling. Calling our riches bling bling. It spread like wildfire. But the reason it spread like wildfire is it was being used in songs. It was being used on TV. It was being used in the radio. It was being used everywhere. It's that simple. That is how simple it is for them to control your minds. Now, are there upper level variations of mind control being used by government agencies? Sure there are. Some of them leaked out this year. In Cuba and Russia, the people getting headaches, they don't want you to know that that is MK Ultra. That is a mind control utility that comes through your iPhone, or it comes through your smartphone. You know, I've always said that smartphones will be the downfall of man, because, you know, what happens with the smartphone is, sure, does it give you worldwide access to the internet and access to whatever you want to look at any time? Yeah, okay, it's got its positives. However, its negatives supersede the positives. You know, its negatives, the government's allowed to listen in your conversations whenever they want, because you're a remote link. You're a remote link linked to the internet. You know, without that link to the internet, they wouldn't have any way of monitoring you, which is why we're seeing in the Bruce and Nellie Orr saga that's beginning to play out. We're beginning to see that they would use, they wanted to use ham radio, because ham radio is through the airwaves. The airwaves are very hard without being in the vicinity with a special tool to be able to pick up. So, to be honest with you, I've wanted to, for the longest time, I wanted to go back to a flip phone, just a standard run-of-the-mill flip phone. No internet on it, nothing. You know, and I've actually honestly thought about going with the track phone, because the only phones that you're allowed, you could use a flip phone. All the major conglomerates in the area of wireless technology have moved away from those, and they won't even let you put them on their networks. So, just a thought for everybody to think about. You know, I remember back in the day, we used to have the Nextel phones, and those are my favorite phones of all time. I mean, the Nextel phones, we had walkie-talkie, you could talk to people, you could call, you could text if you wanted to. I mean, it took you a little longer to text because you were texting based off the number digits on your phone. But I mean, you know what? It was all over the air. It wasn't internet. And with it being over the air, it's a lot harder to be spied on with. I mean, yeah, sure, could your phone be tapped? Sure, but that would require somebody breaking into your house, putting a tap into your phone, and then listening in your conversation. It's not just a push of a button on a keyboard, having the IP address of your phone and certain other details, and boom, they're in. They can listen to whatever you say, utilizing your microphone on your phone whenever they want to hear what's going on in your house. And these aren't just used by government agencies. I mean, these are used by advertising agencies. This is how they get an idea of what's going on with what people want. And they don't really care what you want. They care what they want. And what they want is they want to control you. They want to push what they want to push. Now you just heard me talk about false goods, and false goods are really being pushed hard today. And it started with the Obama administration is when it really, really took root. It actually, and it happened in the Bush administration too, but everything, I hate to say it this way, but I'm going to, because I try not to ever use foul language, but there's no better way to describe it. I'm going to say it. The pussification of the male gender for times moving forward began under Bush with No Child Left Behind and Common Core and all that jazz. That took the ability of the parents and the teachers being able to determine whether or not they wanted to allow their children to receive corporal punishment in school. That took it out of their hands. And I'm not an advocate for child abuse. Believe me, I don't agree with it, and I don't consider that child abuse. I consider that you do something wrong, you're going to remember what you did was wrong. And the easiest way for someone to remember what they did was wrong was, you get a smack. That was the way I was raised. That was the way a lot of us were raised. You get a smack, and then you remember. And there's the really rebellious people like me that it took a couple smacks for me to remember, But what they began to push was, oh, well, you got to be gentle because children are weak, and they're really adaptable to the environment they're around. Listen, do I think children are adaptable to an environment they're around if you're in a family where, your dad's drunk and he's walking around the house saying the F word all the time? Absolutely. Absolutely. But do I think because you give a kid a rap on the backside because he does something wrong that, that this kid's going to turn into a psycho killer over it? No, I don't. I'm sorry. There's entire generations of children that did not turn into psycho killers because they were hit. Now, I would say that if you're an abusive parent and you do it just for no reason, absolutely, you're going to create a monster, because that monster is going to lash out and that monster is going to want to blame everything that happened to him on everybody else and not take responsibility for himself. But the problem is what's happening right now with this Common Core and with the policies that have been put in place, that's happening anyway. Children will not admit when they're wrong. And that is a big thing in this world, and a big problem. If you can't admit when you're wrong, then you have a real problem that you should probably go see somebody about. Part of what makes humanity great is our ability to admit when we're wrong. And that's basically borderline narcissism. So it could lead to sociopathic tendencies. I hate to put it that way, but it's the truth. I've heard of, for instances, where teachers have been suspended from their jobs, teachers have been fired from their jobs, teachers have been warned in their jobs because they took a stance that was more similar to the way we were brought up and called the children out on their BS. But yet in the schools, the parents have the ability to complain to the principal and say, oh, well, that's abusive to my child. And the next thing you know, this poor teacher that's trying to do the right thing is, getting accosted by all these parents. And I don't think it's fair. There are more teachers right now that are leaving the teaching industry. There is a mass exodus in the teaching industry right now because of this, because it is not what it used to be. It is not an environment that's set up where children can learn. It is actually an environment set up where the most unruly of the children take control of the class, and you can't say nothing to them because you end up getting a reprimand. I mean, it's utterly ridiculous. And that is all part of the mind control media. That is the mind control that's going on in the world today. That is what they're pushing for. They want to weaken these structures, these values that we built our lives upon in the past. Because if they can weaken these structures and values, they can open up the door to say to people, well, this is what we call good, and this is what you're going to call good from now on. Despite that, what's good is over here on the other page. We don't care. It's about what we want. And what that is that's a humanistic view of reality. And a humanistic view of reality always takes God out of reality. You see how that works? That's why God has to come out of schools, and God has to come out of the national anthem, and God out of this, God out of that. The reason for that is because they're trying to humanize you. And I don't mean humanize in a positive sense, meaning be a good person, this and that and that and this. No, I mean humanize in they want to tie you to flesh and blood, to the earth. That's the whole point of their humanization. It is an instrument of the devil, and there are many people out there, the richest people in this world, that are doing the devil's bidding right now. But not to get off on a tangent about religion, which I tend to do, and if I keep doing it, I'm going to go off on a tangent here, and I don't want to do that. So, sorry. But an examples of false goods that are being pushed right now. So we're supposed to be all accepting of people that say that all of a sudden, oh, wait, I was supposed to be born a girl, but I'm a boy. We're supposed to be accepting of that. Listen, it's nothing against the person. It's against the sin that's breeding this kind of thought. It's against Deuteronomy 22:5. A woman should not wear the clothes of a man, nor a man the clothes of a woman. The Lord detests this. It is an abomination unto the Lord. That is what it is about. For those of us that have Christian values and Catholic values, and, we follow Judaic Christian teachings, it's not just about going to a church every week and sitting there and nodding your head and saying a couple prayers and listening to what the priest says and then leaving and saying, oh, well, I'm good now. No, you have to live your life that way. If you can't live your life that way, then you're not doing something right. And if the church isn't pushing you to live your life that way, they're not doing something right either. That's a problem. And believe me, if you don't think that some of the major denominations in the world today aren't part of this mind control media game, think again, because they are. They're there to control you using religion. They're using religion as a tool against you. But and there you go. There's an example of a false good. We talked about the push for transgender acceptance in the world today. You should never be mean to a person because they may be conflicted inside and they may have a psychological problem that makes them think that they should have been born a woman if they were a man. Don't be mean to people. You don't have the right to judge people. However, what you need to do is you need to pray for them. You need to be understanding that they're stricken with the sin. We're all stricken with sin. None of us are perfect. You don't go out in the streets with pickets and signs in the air going, oh, screw homosexuals, you guys are an abomination. You don't do that. It's not the person, it's the sin that's within the person. And you're never going to help the people if you push them away. You're only going to push them into the darker side, which is what's been happening. So, and I'm not picking on you if you're listening and, that's your thing. I'm not picking on you. All I'm saying is it's a good example, and that maybe you should read a Bible and maybe you should understand that that's what's being said. And that's what all these false goods being pushed by Democrats right now. And I hate to say it, but it is Democrats, and the Republicans, the evil Republicans are staying in the background. They're a little vocal, but they're not too vocal because they know if they're too vocal enough, they're gonna expose the whole thing. So they stay in the background. But the Democrats, they're free at will to go along with this because they've always been this way. Let's push false goods. So a false good. Here we go. Here's an example. So it's okay for you to steal, as long as you're stealing for a good reason. So if you're stealing because your family's broke, well, that's our fault. We should fix that. And there's your basis for socialism. Boom. Right there. Everybody in this world should be forced, not have the free will to, be forced to contribute to a collective that takes care of everybody. And the richest people in the world should be punished for being the richest people in the world. The people that work hard and make more than $100,000 a year should be punished for working hard and making $100,000 a year. These are the people that spent their time doing studies in school. These are the people that spent time going to college. They spent hard-earned money going to college. And the villainization just isn't fair. It is not fair. It is up to each individual whether they want to be a good person or not. We all receive salvation when we come to Christ and Christ alone. However, as James said, show me your works and I'll show you your faith. And what this forced good is causing is, well, you're being forced to do good work. So are you going to really do good works if the government's taken 90% of your paycheck or 90% of your money, to help the needy or the poor or the guy that's on the corner with the needle in his arm? You're not going to, because you're going to be mad at the entire system. You're not just going to get mad at the government. You're going to get mad at the entire system. And this is what I'm talking about when I say socialism doesn't work. In fact, the only thing that really does work is a capitalist society. That we have to make capitalism work for everybody. And we have to take the sloth out of the world today. Because there are people that just want to sit around all day, watch Oprah Winfrey, watch whatever they want, and then not contribute to society at all. And these are the people that we're being forced to help through socialism. This is what socialism wants us to do. We should help these people. And this is, in fact, what the Democratic Party wants us to do. This is what Obamacare was all about. Now, there was one good trait about Obamacare I really liked, and I think we should strive to keep it, and that is people with pre-existing conditions that can't help it, we can't eliminate them from getting health insurance. We definitely need to do something to help them. And there are actually a lot of Republican-based collectives out there that do this. There are companies out there where a collective group of Christians get together and they buy their own health policy, and anyone can come in it and they all pick up the cost. It is, in a sense, a non-government owned version of universal health care. But the difference is the people are good-hearted, so they're doing it. It's a good-hearted notion. These are the good-hearted notions that get you into heaven when you die. And they're trying to take all means of getting onto that path out of our hands. And it all begins with mind control. It all begins with the narrative they push and how they push the narrative. Do you ever wonder when you watch the news? I mean, especially people watching CNN, NBC, CBS, ABC. You guys are bombarded by it, especially if you're a Democrat, and you think that you're like, yes, Trump's getting impeached. Well, guess what? He's not getting impeached. They're just pushing the impeachment narrative because they want you guys to take to the streets like idiot rioters so that they can kill half of you and arrest half of you and incarcerate you. That's the whole plan behind this. You take to the streets and you do their dirty work. Do you understand what I'm saying? You are just as much a part of this as people that support Donald Trump. And the problem is a lot of you guys supported who you supported because you want something different, especially you Sanders supporters. You guys want something different. You don't want the government to have control over your, well, I don't want to say that because technically that's what you want, but you don't want the rich and powerful, the oligarchs, the elitists, the Illuminati. You don't want them to have control over your life. And that's the big thing you're warring against. You're not warring against the everyday Joe that, is a billionaire. No. People are self-made millionaires and billionaires, and you know what? They deserve to keep their money, and they deserve to have the right to choose to contribute. That is the pursuit of their happiness. And we've been taking that out of America for way too long. And it has to stop. And I'm going to tell you right now, it's going to stop. It's going to stop rather quickly. Actually, the wheels are already in motion. And That's another prime example. Anything they disagree with, they're going to put it on the media, and they're going to make negative stories about it. And they make enough negative stories, and you see it enough that it's negative, you're going to believe it. And there are a lot of weak-minded people out there. And the weak-minded people, I hate to tell you, there's a lot of weak-minded people that have like doctorates and master's degrees. And there are a lot of strong-minded people that didn't graduate high school that woke up. There's two different kinds of people out there, and I'm not making fun of you people that may fall into one of these two categories, but it's the truth. In fact, the college-educated people are more apt to be subjected to the mind control media. And the reason for that is they were mind controlled while they were in high school. They had liberal values pushed down their throats. Take me, for example. I went to an art school. Everything was liberal. Everything I did was liberal. I have a fine arts degree. Luckily I decided to choose a career in the fine arts that I can make money at, which is graphic arts. But regardless, I have a fine arts degree. Like, I was subjected to this stuff. And I think that might be what unweakened my mind, is seeing what people think and seeing how people are affected and seeing what the teachers are pushing down throats. And it wasn't just in art classes. It was in, I had to take academic classes. In my academic classes, the teachers were super liberal. And if you disagreed with them, they would show you it in your grade. They didn't care. They lorded over you as much as they could. And that's why I say that, like, these college students, people that went to college, people that have degrees, people that have, 4, 5, 6, 7-year degrees, you guys were bombarded. You were at war for all that time you were in college, and you didn't even realize it. And one of the worst things is the college students today. Like, we see people making fun of, Ben Shapiro does it a lot, and I love the guy. I think he's great. I think he's one of the premier debaters of our time, and I think he's a future presidential candidate, but that's my opinion. However, Ben Shapiro, a lot, man, he gets bombarded with these, and they're all liberal arts majors. Notice that. These people walking around in the Antifa gear wearing the black and red flags, these people are mind controlled. They don't know what they're doing, and that's why you have to be careful. Yes, defend yourself if they attack you, but you have to be careful, because these people, they don't know what they're doing. Don't allow the devil to take another route with you to suck you in because you kill one of these people because they attack you. No. The best thing you can do is put your hands up in the air, do a couple blocks, do what you have to do, and get the hell out of there. Don't get engaged. Because if they could put you in jail, you're never getting out. Look at what they're doing to Paul Manafort. I give that guy a lot of credit. I didn't know where to go with him for quite some time. I didn't know if he was the bad guy or if he was the good guy. And I'm starting to think he was the good guy, because it takes a lot of will to sit in solitary confinement for the amount of time this guy has and not flip. But what's he have to flip on? He has nothing to flip on. They just want him to manufacture a story. Manufacture a story so that we can impeach our president. And the reason they want to impeach the president, we found this out this week. Those of you that follow Q, we found a lot of this out this week. There is a lot of people that are facing prosecution. There are a lot of people that are going to go down. There's a lot of people that are already indicted and don't even know it yet. And within the next couple months, we're going to see a mass takedown of these people. And I can tell you right now, if the media isn't included in it, the narrative they're going to push is they're going to compare it to Nazi Germany yet again, and they're going to call it, this is like the night of the long swords, when Hitler went and killed all of his political enemies. That's what they're going to call it. They're going to say Trump's a dictator and he's killing all these people, and he's arresting all these people because they're his political enemies. That's why I think that this is taking a little bit of time to come out, because they're figuring out the right way to do it. Because if they don't do it the right way, this could actually do a lot of damage to the country rather than good. And it was built that way. It was built that way so that if you ever cancel it out, it could trigger a civil war. It could trigger a uprising against the government. It could trigger some kind of mass extinction event. And that's another thing they have to be careful of, is a mass extinction event. Now, the last couple of days, I noticed that there's been a lot of activity around the Ring of Fire, a lot of earthquake activity. Now, for those of you that don't know, the Ring of Fire actually houses enough volcanoes within that area, that third portion of the world, to create, excuse me, to create a cloud from, if there was a mass eruption on the Ring of Fire, the smoke cloud that would be created would be almost the equivalence of nuclear winter. We would see temperatures drop immensely. We would see people dying, choking on ash, and it would cover pretty much the entire globe. So there's a lot going on in the world today, and a lot of it has to do with mind control. A lot of it has to do with the mainstream media and the mainstream media forcing narratives. A lot of these mainstream media people you see, they're CIA operatives under deep cover, moonlighting as reporters, pretty much, or, moonlighting as the production engineer, or, they're controlled. And, some of these people are inadvertently controlled. These are people who really went into journalism and, they really wanted to do journalism. And, that's awesome. But the problem is the companies they're working for are controlled, and these companies in turn control them and say, well, you got to talk about this. You can't talk about your personal feelings. You got to talk about our feelings. And me personally, I don't know how they do it, because I would not be able to do that. I would want to have to talk about how I feel. I couldn't sit there and say, well, Donald Trump is this, even though I'm a Trump supporter. Or, say stuff contrary to my beliefs. It's almost like you're paid to speak against yourself. It's not fair. And I think a lot of these people that you're seeing right now that for the longest time have been considered fake news, you're going to find out they're going to come out and they're going to say, listen, we had no choice but to talk about what we talked about. We're forced. It was our jobs, or we had to talk about it. And I'm willing to bet that there's a significant number that the White House already knows are being forced. If I was going to sit here and say a couple, I couldn't even do that, because there's just so many. And there are ones that are genuine shells. And now we're seeing, what we're seeing right now, like this last week was disgusting. I was getting physically sick, and I know a lot of you other people were getting physically sick. Listen to impeachment. Listen, there's no crime yet. Manafort did something wrong. Okay, he avoided taxes. Cohen did something wrong. Well, they're cooperating, so impeach Trump. No, that's not how it works. You give me the proof, and I will stand with you 100% and say impeach our president. If he deserves to be impeached, I'll be the first in line. But he doesn't deserve to be impeached. I haven't seen anything that proves to me otherwise, that he deserves it. He doesn't. And all these media, all these elites out there, politicians, media, actors, there's a handful of actors I won't even watch anymore. And I loved a lot of their movies. And, I'm a big movie guy. And, I've had to turn myself off of it. I'm a big Netflix guy, and I've turned myself off of it because it's all left leaning. I mean, I watch YouTube, because I could watch the movies I want to watch. I watch movies when they weren't politically influenced, back in the 80s, back in the 70s, and even there's some newer stuff that isn't, but I mean, everything is. A prime example, Mind Control Media. Here we go. Independence Day. So Independence Day 2 came out right around the time prior to, I think, or even maybe a little during, like 2014, 2015, I want to say. Well, there's some key points you got to watch in Independence Day 2. So one of those key points is it's a woman president. She's the president of the entire world, not just the country, the world. They were pushing a New World Order, NWO, world presidency. They were pushing a woman president. Madam Secretary, another one on NBC, pushing a woman. One that's coming out now is negative towards the Q movement. One of the guys is called Q17. It's these subtle nuances that corrupt, that are aimed to corrupt your own free thinking, to push you to the edge of, taking the pill and jumping off at their command. So folks, anyway, I mean, there's not much more I can say on this. I mean, there's a lot more I could say on it, but right now I'm kind of pressed for time. So I'm going to leave you at that. And I just want to thank you for tuning in. And I hope you enjoyed this small, short presentation. And I want you all to have a great day, stay blessed, and be patriotic.